to you all. My name is Sakhile. I am from Eswatini, and I'm going to be the program director for the launch that we are having. As I have mentioned that I am from Eswatini, we are currently having some challenges, but I try to get a place that has a secure network. I hope I'm not going to get any distractions. A very, very warm welcome to all. I can see we already have about 24 participants. We welcome you so warmly to this book launch. We are hoping we'll be seeing more and more participants joining through. Welcome, welcome to the launch of the book entitled Social Welfare and Social Work in Southern Africa. We do not have a lot of items on the program, so we hope to really finish in time, on time. We welcome you, welcome everybody. We can see participants, the number of participants is increasing. Welcome. This book that we are launching today has been written by Southern African social welfare, social work, social development, social security, and social policy academic practitioners, as well as advocates with varying degrees of experience. So this is such an amazing book that we are all looking forward to, with such a wealth of information. We welcome you and thank you for being part of this launch. And again, for those that may have just joined in, I am Sakhile Masuku from Eswatini. I'm going to be your program director. Just to let you know that we are in a phase that's a bit challenging in a country, but we try to get a secure place for network. This is just to make you aware, just in case we get disturbances. I hope that is not going to happen. Anyway, we do welcome you so very warmly. Well, those are my brief welcome remarks. And without further ado, I would like us to go into the first item of our program, which is going to be taken care of by Prof. Prof, thank you so much for this great initiative. Prof is the editor of this book. And actually, maybe before Prof takes on, as we're saying, that this book has been written by people with varying degrees of experience, I do want to highlight the countries from where authors of the book came from. I hope to have captured all of them. I was going through the book just before we started off the launch. We have people contributing coming from Mozambique, Namibia, Mauritius, Malawi, Eswatini, Kenya, Lesotho, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Republic of South Africa, Zambia, Tanzania. So we really appreciate those, and we do acknowledge the countries where the authors came from. This was also in part to make sure that our participants are still coming in. I will now right away hand over to Prof, who is going to take us through the journey and the rationale for the book. Thank you, Prof, and we hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Program Director, and good afternoon or late afternoon to all the participants, panelists, and those who have just joined us. My name is Ndangwa Noyoo, and I am based at the University of Cape Town. I am also a director of the Zola Square African Social Policy Innovation, ZASPI, and also based in the Department of Social Development. Guess when we discuss this book and try to provide the rationale for this book, it is important for us to remember that, or to bear in mind the fact that The book covers Africa, a region of Africa, a region that is both endowed with many resources and could be one of the most richest and progressive regions in the world. But at the same time, it is plagued by massive poverty, inequality, and a host of destitution and social ills. So it is important for us to raise those issues at the outset as a sort of a foregrounding of what is going to transpire during the launch, but also what is encompassed in the book. Ladies and gentlemen and panelists, I just want to highlight the fact that when we had started this journey of the book, the rationale for this book, one of the key issues that was driving us was the notion of telling our own stories. You know, we say this academic exercise was also a way of telling our own academic exercise, telling our own academic endeavors, as well as the whole process of knowledge production and, you know, the whole notion of teaching the next generation for all facets of human endeavor across Africa. And so we said we need a text that actually captures the realities of social welfare and social work in the region. That was the driving force, the driving thinking behind the book, the rationale. The second issue that was actually kind of also making us think through this book quite critically was the notion of publishing. We thought, look, this book should not bring together again maybe the usual suspects, so to speak, the established writers and authors, etc. But we wanted to give a voice to those who are upcoming, either as practitioners in the region, or we wanted to provide, you know, a platform for those who have not really published widely in the region to actually, you know, tell their own stories, their own understandings of social welfare and social work and its origins across the region and also from their own countries. So that was the prime motive there, to actually provide a basis, a vehicle, a voice to allow them to articulate their own views in terms of where social welfare and social work emanated from in this region. The third aspect was actually the whole notion of decolonization. You know, you can't decolonize something if you are having outsiders telling you how to decolonize yourselves. So that's also intertwined with the whole notion of telling our own stories. But decolonization of the higher education curricula, which is you know, something that is sweeping across the region, was also informing us and driving us to, you know, arrive at this product, this book. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what it was all about. Three rationales or ideas that actually provided us the impetus to begin writing this book. But more importantly, I think for me was to actually have a text. And I think, you know, our keynote speaker will go into these issues that, you know, you must have a text that actually can allow students to actually peruse. You know, you just open the textbook or the book and you're able to read, oh, this is what is happening in Lesotho. Oh, wow. This is what is happening in the DRC. Wow, this is what is happening in Zimbabwe, etc., Eswatini. More often than not, we don't get this information from our colleagues in the region. And one of the things that kept on, you know, sort of burning for me, actually in my mind was, you know, why shouldn't we actually be able to communicate academically, right, in the region amongst ourselves? Why shouldn't we do that? Huh? These French-speaking Southern Africans are in their corner, writing their books and doing whatever they're doing, quite nice things. The Portuguese-speaking Southern Africans are also in their corner, doing what they're doing. And the Anglo, should we call ourselves Anglo-Saxon? Yeah, well, the former British colonies, right, seem to be dominating the region. All right, and they are the ones now that are churning out all these nice things because somehow the English language has become dominant across the globe. Again, that is part of the decolonization process. We said, let us begin to forge alliances in the region. Let us begin to come together as Southern Africans and yes, use the colonizers' language, which is English, for disseminating our views and tracing the genesis of social welfare and social work in Southern Africa. Southern Africa is a very interlinked region, and these are some of the issues that come to the fore in the book. It is not only about social welfare and social work, because that is something that sort of those two facets of interventions came forth with the colonialists. But we find that there's also a backdrop to that. And the backdrop to that is the indigenous systems, the indigenous social welfare systems, the indigenous social security systems. And the authors in this book, they do offer, a panorama of these indigenous systems. And encapsulated in those indigenous systems are value systems of various African countries and peoples and ethnic groups, traditions, customs, etc., the languages, etc. But one common thread that we always forget when we are talking about Southern Africa is how interlinked and related we are in Southern Africa. You can go from Lesotho speaking Sesotho, Wasibua Sesotho, Handklentlen. You go to South Africa in Bloemfontein, Wasibua Handklentlen Sesotho. You're still speaking Sesotho. You can go from there to Botswana and speak Sesotho, but they are listening to you or attending to you from Setswana paradigm, but they are interlinked. You go to Western Zambia, Wasibua Sesotho, Handklentlen, Barotsi, they will hear you and understand what you're saying. Same goes with the Ndebele of Zimbabwe. They can easily go and speak with their cousins in KwaZulu-Natal and other Ngoni languages. This is all because of the history of Southern Africa. The Difakane and Mfekane, the whole upheavals that came through with Shaka-Zulu. Before I start now going into my history and enjoying this historical ride, let me get back to the essence of today's book, which is why we have systems of care, why we have systems that respond to the needs of Southern Africans. And we'll find that they are, the former ones, so to speak, are colored and shaped by the colonial experience. And therefore, it was important for us to also trace the different colonial forays in the different countries in the region. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the rationale for this book. But more importantly, it's something that we also agree that it is a starting point, that we will continue with this agenda of telling our own stories. We will continue with this agenda of building knowledge from our own perspectives. We will continue to expand this network to other regions so that we have informed content that comes from the peoples of the land themselves who have their own experiences permeating in the pages of the various of the books that we will be writing. This is just the start of the journey. And I thank you, Program Director. I hope you are there. As she mentioned earlier on, they're having challenges in Eswatini, but that is how we live in Africa. We multitask. Whether there's a riot or there's a rebel group there moving, we continue. The show must go on. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Prof. That has been so wonderful. I think my greatest take from what Prof has just said is that this is the starting point and how privileged we are to be part of that start, as we know the importance of a foundation in everything. So we really, really appreciate to be part of this. And I like the fact that we have the opportunity to keep telling our stories, building on knowledge, expanding and expanding so that we are always standing from an informed stance. Thank you very much, Prof. I think that was quite clear. And I do want to welcome again our participants. I can see the numbers are rising. Welcome all. At this point in time, we're going to move into our second item of the agenda, whereby we're going to hear our keynote speaker who's going to speak to us. Our keynote speaker is Miss Albertina. I am so eager to hear from her. Can I just do things the reverse? Normally, we start off by introducing our speaker, saying a bit more, but can I just give it over to her? She'll say a bit, and then so that I reserve the best for last, I'm going to then tell you who she is in detail. Ms. Albertina, thank you for making it to this launch. Could you please have this moment and give us your keynote speech? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Masuku, and thank you, Prof. Noyoo. So, distinguished authors, congratulations. I think this is so wonderful that we have the opportunity to create something like this for ourselves. And fellow social workers and guests, greetings, good afternoon to everybody. So when Prof. Noyoo invited me to be a speaker, I was joyfully surprised and I did not hesitate to say yes. This is like coming full circle in my journey as a social worker. I feel honored to be here and I'm grateful. So my name is Albertina or Tina Mucavele, and I am from Mozambique. I have qualified as a social worker over 20 years now, graduating from the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. And Prof. Noyoo was my lecturer and was my coursework supervisor as well. I believe that I was an enthusiastic student amidst the challenges faced by clients, from paraplegic patients to refugee children. I never wavered. I knew that the profession fit my character and my temperament. Upon completion, I was eager to return to my country, Mozambique, and put it into practice. I did not know enough about the context of social work at home, and I confess that I never bothered to find out. As a young person, it seemed to me a fact that what I learned was all I needed to find a job and perform my duties. After all, this is Africa. I was coming from an African country going into another African country. So as a scholarship recipient that I was at the time, I went back to my benefactors to let them know that I had completed my studies and find out if they wanted me to work for them. They hired me on the spot. How great that is. Yet, when they dropped me for a week in the middle of a rural resettlement village in Gaza province, which is in the south of Mozambique, it wasn't fun anymore. And this was the beginning of my exciting and complex career in the social welfare services and human rights. So this village where they dropped me for a week, was a village where they had built houses. So the organization I worked for, which was FDC, which is Grasa Machel's foundation, they had built houses which were going to be distributed to families that had been displaced by the floods that took place in Mozambique in 2000, the year 2000. I think everybody remembers that. So there were thousands of displaced people all over the southern part of Mozambique. And so this specific village was going to accommodate hundreds of families. So, well, ladies and gentlemen, here I was completely lost. This place did not resemble any of my safe and controlled placements where I had practiced as a student social worker, including even the refugees in Johannesburg. So I carried on with my good temperament and humble attitude, but I felt like a fraud, overwhelmed with fear and doubt. You see, I acknowledge that this might be the sentiment of majority of graduate students as they first enter the workplace. Yet for me, it seemed much, much more than that. Because even as I returned to the city and began engaging with colleagues and partners, I still experienced that sense that something was out of place. And this did not change for a very long time. And if I can summarize my dilemmas at the time, and even I suppose even now, I could place them into two categories. First, it was the profession's name, so the name of the profession, the relevance given to it, and the prestige it did not seem to have. Okay. The second was the inability to translate my skills into the field of practice. And for those that are not social workers, when we speak about the field of practice, is where we operate as social workers. So let me start with the first dilemma. I spent 4 years in one of the most prestigious universities in Africa, which is the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. Yet, when I returned and I translated the name of my profession to the Portuguese language, which is the official language spoken in Mozambique, I found out that the translated name for social worker was social assistant or technician of social action. Can you imagine my disappointment with that? This made me feel embarrassed, and this is a confession. So I began to hide the name of my profession by telling people that I had a degree in social science. It seemed more remarkable and more academically worthy. When I met the most curious ones, I would explain the structure of the course to beef it up. I would say things like, oh, I'm a social worker, a professional social worker. Or I would say, oh, I'm like a social scientist, but professional. Or sometimes I would even say, oh, yeah, I did social work, but it includes sociology and psychology as majors. And I did many placements like internships. So I would say these things in order to make the profession sound relevant and credible. And somehow it sort of made me feel better. I came to find that this was not my sentiment alone. Other professionals who had studied social work in South Africa and Zimbabwe experienced something similar. I knew this because they continued to introduce themselves as social workers in English and not in Portuguese. I realized that professionals, though, who graduated from Portuguese and Brazilian universities introduced themselves as social assistants, which puzzled me, yet did not bring relief at all. Not only did the name not appeal to me, but also how the social action technician was perceived. Okay, in the public's eye, the social assistant or technician was the guy we called to rescue homeless people or who cared for the elderly in residential homes. Though the above are fields of practice for social workers, it's still a narrow understanding of what social workers do and can do. I guess this happened because until the year 2000, No higher education institution had social work graduate degree in Mozambique. The course that existed until then, and I think it continues in some institutions, was a 2.5 years in duration and trained social action technicians to go and work for the government, perhaps compared to what in South Africa we call auxiliary social workers. So graduate social workers were less than 100. Those who had completed a university degree were less than 100 when I arrived 20 years ago. And all of them were trained outside of the country. It was this realization that made us develop the first social work degree curriculum for the University of Eduardo Mondlane, which is our oldest and most prestigious university in the country. In addition to that, there was no institution to which social workers were accountable to. Those who worked for the government responded to the government, yet none had licenses or any kind of registration in the body that regulated their work. And this is precarious. We know this. Accountability also boosts the prestige of a profession, and people trust it better. Please do get me right here. I enjoyed the work that I was doing. I worked for FDC, I worked for UNICEF, I worked for FHI 360 and other organizations, and I really enjoyed what I was doing and all the development work that I was doing. I just didn't call myself a social assistant. So I would call myself development worker, project manager, a specialist of this and that, but never social assistant. And so I go into the second dilemma, which is how to fit my skills in the field of practice. As I said right in the beginning, I did not find commonalities between the places I worked while a student with those that I was sent to work by my employers. This, ladies and gentlemen, I found to be a shared experience amongst all social workers I met, including those who worked for the government. In the face of vulnerable children, people living with chronic illnesses, victims of violence, or even victims of natural disasters, social action technicians did not seem to start and finish case management efficiently and effectively. And again, for those that are not social workers, when we speak about case management is when we identify a situation with an individual or family or community, and we follow that whole that case until it's closed, wherever path it takes us. And we are trained with various skills to do that. But what I'm trying to say is that the skills that I learned did not seem to fit in the field of practice that I was faced with. So I'm going to tell you a story that is very recent, that it happened in March, around March, April of 2018. We had the Idai cyclone in Mozambique, as many of you have known and experienced with us, followed and supported us from the countries that you are coming, where you are in. And I was deployed to go and work in the field. I arrived a week after the incident. It was devastating. The city of Beira, which was the worst hit site in the country, was shattered. The only safe place and spacious place with water, electricity, was the airport of the city. So more than 300 humanitarian professionals gathered at the airport to work. It was a buzz. And when I say buzz, I'm understating it. It would look like a war zone. So meetings had to be fast before the arrival or departure of helicopters, still searching for people in flooded villages. And so in this context, one of the significant challenges of this response was collaboration and articulation between humanitarian teams and social welfare workers. Language was a barrier. In addition, the number of social action technicians was a challenge. There were not enough social action technicians, as they are called, some of the social workers. And experience was an even bigger obstacle. You see, most humanitarian workers who come into our countries in times like this, they are deployed from all corners of the world. They are used and they experience in these chaotic situations. They move with speed and to feed people, to save people, and to protect people. As the local social service professionals did not seem to know where to start. Given the difficulties of finding common grounds in terms of simple referral pathways, as in how to identify people, how to identify children that were lost, how to support, grandmothers that didn't know where their family members were, and then making sure that we trace the case until it's closed. So we call that the referral pathway. I was given the task to organize a meeting with all social welfare stakeholders, including the humanitarian teams and civil society organizations. So this was a really big meeting. And in this meeting, we had a European colleague teach us how to do case management in our country for our people. And at the time, it felt indignant, but it was the truth of the reality. We were not prepared for this. We were not prepared for this. Now, the question I leave to all of you, especially my fellow social service professionals, how often floods, droughts, wars, famine, pandemics do our countries experience within a decade? And I'll just leave that question. So based on what the authors have brought forward in this book, which is a really brilliant book, most of what I have shared isn't news. So what's the way forward? After reflecting on the chapters of this book, I would like to propose that as we move forward into the future, we contribute to creating a social welfare and social services systems that look like us, And I have a couple of ideas. Amidst many things that could be done, I would like to forward some ideas. So the first idea that I bring is this. So let us take geography and the social fabric of our societies into account when designing policies, programs, and especially the social work curricula. And I'll give some examples of that. The first thing I'll talk about is equity. So equity between rural and urban is fundamental, and this is the truth for all the countries in Southern Africa. Decentralization of services closest to the people and the families is important, and it's urgent so that our service can be more responsive. This means an increase in the quantity and quality of human resources as well, because even in the countries that are a little bit more advanced than Mozambique, quantity of social workers is still a challenge. We already have, though, some good examples from the book you can read from Botswana, Mauritius, and some other countries in the regions that have made possible to deploy social workers to be closest to the people. The other point that is very typical in our region is the social norms that dictate decision-making, family and individual choices, and also good care practices should be studied and embedded in our practices. For instance, in most African families, children are cared for by next of kin. There are also godparent practices in some of our societies where a community member, a church member, a family member, even friends become second parent figures for children that are not their own. So apart from adoption and fostering children, we could also legislate these kinds of relationships that exist in our communities. Like many of the authors mentioned in this book, the existence of organic social protection and welfare mechanisms in communities, it is an advantage. What if, when thinking of cash transfers, for instance, saving schemes are promoted amongst beneficiaries? So instead of just giving the cash, why not also promote ways in which people know how to use the money? While thinking about social transfers, we get to think about family sizes. Very often, cash transfers target one individual, in the family, whether because the person is an elderly, a person with a disability, etc. We need to start thinking of size because this is our reality. Our families are big. Of course, all of this is possible if we continue to advocate for an enhanced fiscal space for social welfare and social services. The second idea is that we must shape policy and services to address the contemporary themes common amongst us. The field of practice for social workers cannot be restricted to traditional settings, such as hospitals, prisons, residential homes, and orphanages. Instead, social welfare systems and social work ought to be prepared for the realities of today. One very big issue that we are facing is climate change, which has been affecting us severely for decades. Floods and droughts have impacted families in shorter intervals in Southern Africa. Social welfare and services should be ready to respond efficiently and with a sense of urgency. We cannot continue to rely solely on international humanitarian response for our issues. The recurrent pandemics such as HIV, Ebola, and now the COVID have been here and they'll be here for some time. Therefore, social workers must be trained in appropriate case management while staying safe and obviously keeping others safe. The other issue that I think it's important for us to start talking about is early childhood development. It was an issue that was dealt by the education and health sectors for a very long time, yet some countries are recognizing and shifting this portfolio to social development sectors. So ECD is essential and essential for human development. And children that benefit from early interventions have better chances to succeed in life. In addition, when ECD services are available, women have more time for other activities. Peace and justice is a recurrent issue for us in the region. From the continued militarization of society in Congo, the insurgencies in Mozambique, as everybody knows, and the constant and incidents of xenophobic attacks in South Africa, it's a continuum of violence against one another. Social workers must be at the front line. Social workers must be prepared. And instead of sitting in offices and waiting to be called, need to come forward and do and serve better. Better training, obviously, is necessary to prevent and respond forced unions and what we call child marriage in the region, and increased advocacy with communities and with governments, so that on the one hand we prevent, but on the other we're also able to rescue these young women. And lastly, on this point, one of the last points that I want to make is in relation to the economic development of the region. There's so much investment that is coming into our region, and we need to start being able to leverage that. And who better to make sure that families and individuals that normally are marginalized are included, as part of the economic development of the region. And finally, my final point and idea is that we should review the status of this profession, elevate the work of social workers by promoting its utility and credibility by establishing mechanisms for accountability. Social workers must be accountable. We need social workers associations, councils, or federations in country, in the region. This brings credibility. Social work curricula must be adapted and, like I said above, to meet the needs of people as they are right now, and not just be theoretical. So we cannot continue to rely solely on the West for references, for knowledge, for information. And so to conclude, some of my concluding points are that I would like to encourage and even challenge, the intellectuals and the academics of the region to come together, to start creating alignments between our curriculums, between our services, and let language not be a barrier for our work. So I conclude by saying that and reiterating that there has been so much that has already happened in Southern Africa for the common good of our region. I believe that the ideas that are proposed can also happen. So I want to congratulate Prof. Noyoo for such a bold step towards achieving this regional collaboration. This is huge, in my opinion. And the book achieved this because indeed we have a lot more in common than we are aware of. And so it is our responsibility to push this regional agenda forward. And to end, let me tell every social work service professional out there, wherever you call yourselves, know that you have been chosen and prepared for a moment such as this. Be and walk with pride in your talents to serve others boldly and authentically. Thank you.
Oh, wow, what a story. I almost said, let's give her a round of applause. And yes, we are giving you a round of applause. Thank you so much, Albertina, that was very, very touching. Thank you for sharing your personal experience. Thank you for challenging us. And on that note, I really do want to appreciate Prof. Noyoo, because he's really started this collaboration. And I do believe that with his initiative, we are certainly moving in the right direction. And all your ideas have been noted. Thank you so much. Just for to continue as I promised, Miss Tina, we really appreciate. She is the founder and director of Timber Life CCC, and she is contracted as a project manager. She's a senior education lead at Total Energies E&P Mozambique LNG. She's already shared our qualifications for us. And what's more interesting is that she's also a qualified spiritual life coach who has been trained by the Inner Visions Institute for Spiritual Development. And we could get all of that even as you shared your story with us. Really appreciate you. And it's great to know that you're also a former student of Prof. And I can imagine being that student that's outstanding. And then Prof knows that when he is launching a book, his former student has to give a keynote. Oh, congratulations for that as well. At this point in time, I did write on the chat box that we're going to have a session where we allow our attendees to forward. It could be the questions, it could be comments, it could be clarities, or anything that I've got to say, basically some reactions from our attendees. I really would like to give about 10 minutes because we really want to hear Africans speaking for themselves. We want to hear our voices. So I will at this point allow the reactions, and also on that note, while I'm waiting for, yes, I'm going to see, kindly show by the raising of your hand, or you can just unmute yourself if you are unable to raise your hand. Then we will just give you the platform to mention your comments or your questions, and we will respond accordingly. Yes, thank you very much. I already see hands. And also on that note, we please check the chat box. We do have a link where you can find the book, so that I think it's just worth each and every one of us going through it. I see Isaac, and then after Isaac, I'm going to give the chance to Marilyn. So Isaac, please go first.
Okay, thank you, Program Director. I just want to say this is a great moment for scholars of social development and social protection or social security. I would like, mine is just a compliment to the editor, especially, and the authors of different chapters. I really appreciate this work, and I've just read part of it, but I think this is a great contribution to this field, and so congratulations to Prof. Noyoo for this publication. I don't have much. I think we'll share this in other platforms. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much, Isaac. We appreciate that. I can also see some comments on the Q&A chat box. But before probably I go into that, I'm going to allow Marilyn to take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Very audible.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Marilyn Ganunu Kröning. I just want to maybe speak for 2 or 3 minutes. When I received the invitation to this book launch, I think two nights ago from Tina, I was very pleased and excited to join. So thank you very much for inviting me. I used to be in class with Tina 20 years ago and studied under Professor Noyoo for a BA social work degree at Wits University. And I have many wonderful memories of that time. They were certainly very shaping and often challenging and involved many tears as well as growth and a lot of joy. I was a young, also I think enthusiastic student from Germany in class. And I had to be brought on board. I had to listen and understand, and I learned a lot from Tina during our long nights of working on assignments, of discussions, etc. Yes, as Tina said, at the time, the profession, the social work profession, and even the degree of BA social work didn't seem to have much status. I remember walking across campus and meeting people who studied BCom and B psychology and such degrees. And we were, in apostrophes, only social work students and felt at times inferior and not very confident. At the same time, we knew very well on what journey we were and how hard it really was, the studies, the internships, and the expectation towards us as young graduates and towards the profession as a whole. No one had an idea on what boat we were sailing. Now, I remember from that time, there was a textbook, and Tina and Professor Noyoo, you can correct me, but there was a textbook, I think it was called something like Social Work in South Africa, which was probably written around, in the 90s, I suspect. I don't know exactly, but it gave a background to the social work profession at the time. It was looking back of how social work started and so on, how it had evolved probably until more or less the change of government. After having worked in child protection for some years after I graduated, I now work for the German government, and I've been based in Botswana for about 15 years with various SADC, and I work with various SADC projects, regional projects as finance manager and capacity development advisor. So I'm one of those actually who in some way have left the profession and expanded myself. But I must say still my social work background guides me every step of my way. And I remember my skills and all of that. I'm sure some bells are ringing and I can see Tina smiling. Anyways, I want to say I also look up to social workers, those who still practice social work as in social work, and want to encourage them to continue expanding themselves and stretching their minds. I remember a big billboard in Johannesburg at the time. It was a Wits advertisement saying Wits stretches your mind. And I always remember that. And I think we should stretch our minds as well as our practice, as well as our sphere of influence. And by that, our recognition, I think, will also improve. So in a way, coming back to the book, I regard this book that is being launched somewhat as the second edition of the book that we had as our textbooks at the time. And to learn from this book what has happened since then to the profession. But I think it will be different, this book, from what I hear, what Professor has said earlier, in that it, on the one hand, speaks from a multifold perspective. It doesn't just give a singular perspective. So we will read from people themselves telling their or our own stories. and also that it is not a South African perspective, but a Southern African perspective, which I think is also exciting because it brings in yet even different perspectives and gives a broader overview. So yeah, I look forward to accessing the book and diving into it and reading it. And I also would like to congratulate you, Professor Noyoo, as the editor. I'm sure there's been a lot of work that's gone into this book and coordinating all the different authors. And also I want to congratulate the authors for this very good book. And Tina, thank you for inviting me and for a nice, inspiring speech. And yeah, thank you very much. I hope we'll keep in touch.
Thank you very much, Marilyn. We appreciate the comments. We appreciate the congratulatory notes. Before I allow our keynote speaker and probably Prof to make their reactions to the comments that have been forwarded, I would like to read comments that are on the chat box. We have one that says, would love to hear more about indigenous knowledge systems and social welfare and social work in the Southern African region. Another comment is, okay, the comment I just read is from Nirod. And then we have another comment from Gwanele Gumbi, basically saying, brave, brilliant, comprehensive, and insightful keynote from Ms. Tina, wishing the best readership for Prof. Noyoo's book. So basically, those are the comments we have for now on our chat box. Any reactions, keynote speaker?
I was thinking, oh, keynote speaker. I forgot it was me. Oh, so I don't have much to add, and just I'm grateful for the comments that Marilla made. Indeed, it was interesting because we were both challenged, you know, as students, we were challenged to work in very interesting environments, you know, from prisons to hospitals to with refugee groups, etc. But my point was that even though we got all those skills, then when we go to the reality of Africa, you know, the villages, and when we have to deal with people who have been stripped of everything because of a flood, people who have been in hunger because of a drought, when we are faced with that, suddenly it seems like everything that I've learned no longer is useful. So my offer is that as we train the students, they're also exposed to this. As we train professionals, you know, whatever degrees, and even continuously as we engage with each other, you know, as academics, as professionals, we have to continue to look at how do we perform, you know, and how do we show up in those circumstances, you know, so that what we learn does not remain as intellectual, you know, as just the theories of social work, you know, but we are able to then put that in practice in real life settings, you know, like the ones that I've shared, which are very common. You know, it's like every time we have a rainy season in Mozambique, for instance, and I'm sure it happens in Malawi and Tanzania and, you know, especially parts of Zambia and parts of Zimbabwe, there's always this fear that because the rain is coming, we don't know if it is going to be a flood, you know, and so we need to be prepared for that. We need to be living in a, you know, with some sense of urgency, you know, so that we don't become passive recipients continuously of forces that come from the outside, that come with the knowledge, with the skills, with the money. We need to be able to be more proactive in responding to our own issues. Thank you.
Sorry, I was speaking. Basically, I was just saying thank you very much, Tina. And Prof, can I hand over to you to also make your remarks or reactions?
Right. Thank you so much for the interventions and the contributions from the audience. It's quite interesting to note that when you're, although we are not in proximity, but when you're in such spaces, now it's virtually, you kind of bump into people that you met some 20, 25 years ago. And lo and behold, now we have some Vitses in the audience. And Mariel, I remember, was a very passionate student. And it takes me back to those years when we had the head of department of social work at WITS, the late Professor Brian William McKendrick. And actually this is the second book I've dedicated to this sterling academic who was in one way or the other helped to shape me in a particular way to approach some of these things in a collaborative way. There's something that Professor McKendrick used to really drive for, was to pass the baton, making sure that there's a group of younger academics who are coming to the forward. He would share knowledge freely so. And I guess I'm also cut from that cloth, and I share that philosophy that for us to move forward, we need to have this cadre of academics, young scholars who are engaged in finding the solutions to our challenges. I mean, as the keynote speaker, Albertina, pointed out, these issues of flood, it's like we are in the medieval times that we just wait and, have to react. And yet we could have early warning systems, both from engineering or scientific point of view, but also from our own indigenous knowledge systems, because these are people who have lived in these communities for thousands of years. Those who live near the Zambezi would tell you that the Zambezi used to flood to this extent 10 years ago. Now it's either receding or it's expanding. And those are the people who would be able to feed that information into the policymakers and the researchers. So early warning systems are not just these gadgets, but it's actually the people on the ground. And so these issues are very important for social workers because they are the ones who are in touch with the pulse of the people. They understand their value systems, they understand their traditions, they understand their cultures. And that's why it's important to work in interdisciplinary teams at this point in time when we're talking about issues of climate change, etc. So what are we saying? We're saying that knowledge production should begin to be much more sharper, more intertwined, integrated, especially when it comes to different parts of Southern Africa and other regions of Africa, reflecting the realities of African countries. The paucity of literature, information, and data across the regions about our conditions and how we live on this continent is shocking. And so we can't just leave it to the politicians. If the politicians are failing, it's up to us, the academics and the activists. And that's why this book, you've got some activists as well as practitioners who also provided their perspectives. So all we're saying is that the building of knowledge and the research should continue. But I feel right now that people like myself who have been in this game for a while, so to speak, it's to open up those spaces for younger academics, for younger scholars, etc., and encourage this new group to find its footing and blossom and fly. Yeah. So thanks, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Prof, for those comments. And thank you for practically doing what you're talking about, actually giving the space to the generation. It's a very big take-home point for all of us. I think even as we can witness a number of your students that are here, how you have created the environment to be so enabling for that. Thank you for not just saying it, but for also living that out. I would also like to read other comments that I see on the chat box. We have a congratulatory note from Felix. Congratulations to the authors. He was also finding out how we can get the book, and we have responded to that. And we have another message from Dumba, which reads thus: great job, editor, authors, and everyone. This is a fantastic academic contribution. Let's not stop here. Let this initiative be extended to collaborative learning and teaching and research. I am at the University of Namibia. Wow, with the contact details stated there. Thank you so much, Dumba. At this point, I'm still going to check if we have more hands, more comments. We have a bit of some minutes. We do appreciate everybody that has voiced comments, those that have written their comments. Many thanks to that. I don't seem to see any hands. And then thank you so much for everything that we have done till this far. I am now going to go to the last item of the program. Last item of the program is a vote of thanks. And our vote of thanks is coming from Elaine. He is an activist and an academic from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Elaine focuses his work on community empowerment and social inclusion. He is interested in social justice and good governance issues. He runs his own locally based organization, the Promoting Youth Education Program, PYE, which engages various social activities. We appreciate to have him this evening to give us the vote of thanks. Over to you, Elian. Mr. Elian, I hope he is on. Oh yes, there you are. Thank you so much, sir. Please take the floor. I believe he is on, and he is connecting all the way from the Republic of Congo. Mr. Elian, are you there?
Program director, he had just sent a message. He was having challenges with connectivity. I don't know if he's there. I'll send a WhatsApp just now. Program director, it seems we're having a challenge, and these are the realities we mentioned on the continent. And
yes,
but he was there, then he kind of just disappeared. The connectivity is a problem.
Okay. Yeah, like Prof said, these are some of the challenges that are prevailing. But yes, we are going to proceed. Hopefully, if he's able to connect, we will just give him the floor. But basically, Mr. Allen was going to give us the vote of thanks, which was going to be the last item on the program. And then I was going to make a few closing remarks, which are, oh, Mr. Allen, are you there? Hello, over. Yeah, up. Over, yes. I think at this point, Prof, can we please allow you just to tell us a bit and maybe talk about Mr. Allen in the event we're still trying to connect.
Okay. Colleagues and panelists and the audience, he was Alain Maboko. He's based in the Eastern Congo, near the city of Goma. Just now when there was a volcano, he was caught up in that melee, so to speak. He was here earlier on, but again, the connection seems to have, you know, the connectivity issues are a challenge, and given the reality. But for me, Alain is a young person who represents, and I've written that as part of the preface to the book, who represents the resilience of African people and the next generation. Alain contributed a chapter on the DRC. So he touches on the backdrop of, you know, the Congo's colonization and how the Belgians, especially King Leopold of Belgium, you know, was at the forefront of decimating African population because of the they were forcing Africans to work in the rubber plantations, and those who didn't provide this or meet the required so-called quotas, they had their limbs chopped off. And so it was brutal in the Congo, and it was almost like a fiefdom. So there's Alain. He's got his hand up. Come in, so to speak.
Allah, yes, please.
Well, we're still having those connectivity problems. I guess what I wanted to highlight about the author for the DRC, who was going to be providing the vote of thanks, is that when we were writing this book, first, in the midst of writing his chapter and providing his chapter, there was a rebel insurgency. In the East, it's always there. The Congo, Goma. And I'm watching on the television, the news that, oh, they've now overrun and they're shooting and killing. And I sent the email. I'm like, Alain, I hope you're fine. And then, you know, a couple of days and I'm worried, no response. Then there's an email, Prof, I'm here. I know, I'm okay, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, stay safe, you know, make sure that the rebels don't catch you. I'm writing the chapter. And then we continue with the journey of this book. I mean, this thing is quite surreal for me. And then later, there was the outbreak of the Ebola pandemic. And again, Alain was caught up in the melee, and I'm watching this now. There's you know, people are dying and blah, blah, blah. And I send an email, Alain, how are you? It's, ça va, Prof? Bon courage, I'm still here, blah, blah, blah. That's how he responds when you catch him on the phone. Lo and behold, Alain didn't manage to finish his chapter despite all these challenges, despite all the death that was surrounding him. And here we have a product, at least I would say, of the first, chapter that really begins to discuss the origins of social welfare and social work, albeit from a social protection point of view in the Congo. So that's this young gentleman who's resilient and very passionate, and he lives the life. People think that, oh, there's all doom and gloom in Congo, but in the face of all that death, right now there was the volcano, no state intervention, people just have to make do. He did finish his chapter. And then it reminded me of certain academic undertakings I was involved in, being an editor, where you have to follow up on certain authors who have got all the resources, the comfort, and you even start sounding as if you're nagging them for the chapter. But Alain, there he was, a rebel insurgency, Ebola, you name it. He came out tops and provided the chapter. So if it's not going to come through, that is Alain for you. That's the next generation. And I really, really thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Prof. That's quite sentimental. There, Ala, I see you. Please come in. We do have some time. Just unmute and talk. When you talk, I'll just stop. But that was really, really sentimental, Prof. And that's really motivating to know that, despite the circumstances, you still can be a productive and meaningful social person. Particularly because I think for me here in Eswatini, I'm still in that phase of being traumatized. We're in a very, very traumatic state. When you see a lot of things taking place in neighboring countries, and then before you know it, it's like right on your doorstep. But just to learn and know and see everybody that have been through and still made it through, that was quite inspiring. Thank you for sharing that with us about Alain. As soon as he's able to come, I'll just stop. I think he's still trying. And as we close, Prof, thank you for the platform. Authors, congratulations. Participants and our attendees, thank you very much for joining in. We hope you can still share the link. It's currently live on Facebook, so it can be watched even later, and let's share as much around. I do want to appreciate the honor of being the program director for this launch. Thank you for the cooperation. We're also just grateful that we proceeded smoothly here, given our circumstances as well. The book is launched, and we are happy the book is launched. We are happy to see everybody. We appreciate those that are going to be looking and watching this. Please know that we appreciate you. Yes, the book, Social Welfare and Social Work in Southern Africa, has been officially launched. And this marks the end of our program. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you. I will be waiting to say bye to each one of you.
Thank you, Program Director, and thank you for the sterling work. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, our keynote speaker. Thank you, Elaine. We know you are with us here. Thank you, participants. We appreciate you.